Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are right around the corner, and the amount of information we have on these new Nintendo Switch titles in the franchise just keeps growing and growing and growing. And recently, a lot of content creators, whether they be in the Pokemon community or just, general companies like IGN, GameSpot, what have you, have been invited out to New York to actually play test the game. And this was just a test build of the game, nothing very fancy, more like a demo than anything, non-finished version, let me add. Were invited out. They were allowed to play for an hour, and the embargo is up, and they've been allowed to talk about their experience playing Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And depending on who you watch, which outlet you're watching, there could be some very interesting information here that could be concerning to more casual Pokemon fans that aren't maybe as familiar with a lot of the stuff going on in the gaming scene. So today I want to talk about something that I find very interesting, that being how Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is actually going to run on the current Nintendo Switch hardware. Is it going to be able to handle it, and all that surrounds the actual gameplay experience, not necessarily the new gameplay mechanics, whether it be gym leaders, the Titans or the Team Star stuff. No, I'm focusing more on the actual performance of the game on the system. So what is going on, everybody? My name is Nico, and today we're going to be talking Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and we're going to be talking a lot more Pokemon stuff here on the channel because a lot of people have been requesting it, and I'm still going to do my normal Nintendo Switch stuff here and there and Steam Deck stuff as well. But leading into Scarlet and Violet, there will be a lot more Pokemon content, and especially after the release of Scarlet and Violet, there's going to be a lot more Pokemon content because that seems to be what people really want to see on the channel. So subscribe if that's your jam. If you like Nintendo Switch, if you like Pokemon, if you like Steam Deck, make sure you are sub. But let's talk about the performance on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this is a talking point that I find kind of interesting because recently I picked up a Steam Deck, and the Steam Deck has a lot of really cool games on it, can run games very, very well. And one of those games that I've been playtesting on it has been Temtem. And if you know what Temtem is, it is basically one of the better Pokemon clones out on the market, and it is fantastic on the Steam Deck. 60 FPS and runs super, super well, and the whole game is multiplayer. You see a bunch of other players in the overworld running around with their Temtem doing their thing. It's a really cool game. However, there are still occasional frame dips here and there while playing Temtem on the Steam Deck. Now, I bring this issue up because the Steam Deck is dramatically more powerful than the Nintendo Switch OLED, the best model of the Nintendo Switch on the market right now. And because of this, and because of Pokemon's new leap into open world, there are some concerns regarding how this game is going to perform. And if you look at a lot of the outlets that aren't necessarily in the Pokemon community, if you look at a lot of content creators that are in the Pokemon community that talked about how this game is running, they weren't focused on things like frame rate, this, that, or the other. They were focused on the actual mechanics of Pokemon. How does the overworld work? How do the gym battles work? How does Team Star work? How does the Let's Go feature work? The different actual features of the Pokemon game from generation to generation is what they were more focused on. Where if you look at other outlets like IGN and things like that, they're going to be more focused on the performance of the system. They're going to talk about the gameplay and mechanics as well, but they are going to bring up, how the game is running. And I've seen a lot of them talk about how the game is capped at 30 FPS, and due to the open world nature of the game, it does dip. It does dip below that 30 FPS a lot, and there are noticeable frame issues. Is this a reason that you should be concerned picking up the new Pokemon games on the Nintendo Switch? I think yes and no. I'm going to start with no, you should not be concerned, because I think that is something that's more prevalent to the people that are coming to look at this video. I think no, you should not be concerned, because let's look at the track record for the previous Pokemon games. If we look back at Pokemon as a whole, there have always been graphical imperfections, graphical issues coming from Pokemon. That's just how these games have always been. If you look at Sword and Shield Wild area, there were graphical issues there, especially if you had your online turned on. There were some issues and frame rate dips there. If you look at Legends Arceus, certain effects and particles would cause frame rate dips in that game as well. So there have been numerous times throughout Pokemon's life cycle, it's just always there. There's always something that causes a little bit of frame dips. I remember playing Sun and Moon back on my 2DS. Had some frame drops in that particular game because the system was getting old and the game was getting a bit ahead of its time. It's just how it works because of the hardware. And I think that's going to be a very similar case going into Scarlet and Violet. We have a 5-year-old piece of hardware here, and there are a lot better consoles on the market. This game is going to tax the hardware that it is running on. That's just how it's going to be. There's going to be some frame dips. I'm positive of it. However, I don't think you need to be concerned, because this, for one, the playtest that they did was not on a final build of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. This was a test build of the game that had different things that were featured in it and accessed earlier, so that way they could have a better experience overall in the hour that they had. And there's still, you know, the day one updates and things like that always happen. There's still about 4 weeks before this game comes out. There's a lot that they can fix up and polish before the game actually drops. So I don't think you need to be concerned, especially looking at Legends Arceus and Pokemon Sword and Shield. The trailers that we got for those games prior to release, there was not a whole lot going on. Legends Arceus is a big contender for this. If you look at a lot of Legends Arceus, the trailers did not look good. The graphics did not look right. There was a lack of Pokemon in the overworld. There was just not a whole lot going on in these trailers that was really like, this is going to be a stellar game. Then we get the actual release, and it was fine. The graphics looked fine. They performed just fine. There were Pokemon in the overworld. A lot of the concerns that people had from the trailers were addressed and resolved by the time the live version of the game went out, because you got to think, when we get trailers, when we get test builds, demos, these are not the complete package that we are actually going to receive when the game drops. And it's because of this that I say you should not be super worried going into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I think they will be fantastic new entries in the Pokemon series, and you should be really, really excited to play them, because there's a lot of cool new stuff coming in these games, which I will not break down here. If you want to see that, leave a comment. I might make a follow-up video talking about a lot of the new mechanics and stuff like that. But I also said you should be worried, and I say this with a little asterisk at the end of that. You should be worried, kind of, sort of, because we've had this system for 5 years, okay? We have had this system for 5 whole years, and I am someone who plays damn near everything on this system, okay? I play a ton of different games on the Nintendo Switch, and honestly, at this point, a lot of the games are starting to tax the hardware. It's just getting old, especially even at the start, games kind of tax the hardware. Look at Breath of the Wild. There are constantly things that cause frame drops in that particular game. This system's just getting old, and with Pokemon's latest jump into open world, that it's likely going to change Pokemon forever. Pokemon is likely going to continue this formula going forward, because if you look at things in previous Pokemon entries, like the wild area and like the open world areas we got in Legends Arceus, this has been something that Pokemon has wanted to do for a while and had to play test to get to where we are in Scarlet and Violet. And it's just going to continue moving forward. They're going to continue to change the game and add more and more and more in terms of the open world nature of the game, and that is going to be more and more taxing on the hardware. So I think if we keep the Nintendo Switch, if we don't get a Nintendo Switch Pro in the next coming years, we could potentially have issues with the next Pokemon game that does come out on the system, because it just maybe either A, could not make a big enough jump to feel that different from Scarlet and Violet, or it just is going to have a lot of performance issues on the standard Nintendo Switch model that is currently available. I think at this point Nintendo is working on a new Switch, so I don't think this is something that we actually have to worry about, but they haven't officially announced anything. It's been very hush-hush. We've been talking about a new Nintendo Switch since before the OLED was even announced. So who knows when we're actually going to get a new Nintendo Switch system that could handle, you know, these open world games, because, you know, Nintendo's very good at milking their systems. They're able to get a lot out of it if you look at a lot of the first party games. However, despite Pokemon being associated with Nintendo so heavily, Nintendo does not own Game Freak. So Game Freak is a third-party developer that's simply out there doing what every other third-party developer is doing and just working with what they have on the hardware. That's just how it is. Now, Pokemon is able to run as well as it does on the system because they have that cartoony, stylistic art style that they go for, much like Fortnite. Fortnite has that art style that just so many things can work in. Pokemon has a very similar style where that cartoony nature works better on this system. It's just how it is for many, many games. But with the jump to open world, with the jump to these big expansive landscapes, how much longer can that run on this base system with how games like Sword and Shield ran on the system, with Sword and Shield's wild area being kind of questionable in terms of performance? How can this open world game continue running on this system? That is something that I find very interesting, and I'll be curious to see how the game actually runs when it launches. And it's just something I think is very interesting with the change. This is the biggest change Pokemon has had in a very long time, and I'm keen to see how it affects on, well, how it plays on the Nintendo Switch. So those are my thoughts, but let me know yours in the comments below. Are you concerned about the new Pokemon games and how they're performing on the Nintendo Switch, or is this not something that you even worry about like myself? I more am going into new Pokemon games with wanting to test out the new mechanics. How does terrestrialization work? How do, crafting TMs work? That's more my jam. How do I shiny hunt? That's kind of my thing. I'm not worried about performance at all. Let me know your thoughts, though. A lot of people are different. And if you want to see more stuff from me, if you found the video entertaining and helpful, leave a like, subscribe for more Pokemon, Nintendo Switch, and Steam Deck stuff from me in the future. Be sure to check out W, which is an energy drink, 0 sugar, 0 carbs. Very, very tasty stuff. If you don't like energy drinks, though, they do have a hydration flavor that you can just add to some water. Super, super tasty, and it's 10% off with code NICO, so check that stuff out as well. But if you want to see more from me, be sure to check out this video where I talk about if Xbox should actually acquire Activision. I think it's a very interesting talking point. A lot of people got fired up in the comments section. Also, I got a Steam Deck recently. If you want to know more about the Steam Deck, is it, cool compared to the Nintendo Switch, be sure to check out this first impressions video where I talk about just that. But that is all. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see y'all in the next one. Peace.